Here with more is Bill Brennan. He served as a payroll corporation attorney for former President Trump and also represented him during his second impeachment trial. Good morning to you, sir, and thanks for coming on the show. So you have worked with this judge before. What did you make of his move to remove reporters and jurors from the courtroom to handle this situation?
Well, good morning, Alex. Rob, thanks for having me. You know, Judge Merchan is a gentleman. He has an even-keeled, low-key way of presiding over a trial, and he's got a long fuse, but it's not unlimited. And whatever this witness did, it was enough to invoke his temper, and it's very unusual. And the sad part about it for the defense, who had a couple of spectacular days with Mr. Cohen on cross, is we're now talking about this nonsense caused by a witness who made it all about himself, as opposed to the great material that came out on cross.
Just on a human level for a second, sir. I mean, most folks will live their whole life and never, be called to the witness stand or go through a trial. But we all know basic behavior and have seen enough courtroom dramas on TV. What grown man gets on the stand and thinks you can chastise the judge, roll your eyes, look at him oddly, say geez as you talk through an objection that was sustained by the judge? Who, just on a human level, behaves that way in general, let alone in a trial of this magnitude?
Hey, Rob, I'm flabbergasted. Not just a grown man, a seasoned and apparently well-respected lawyer. I mean, it's like the old Jim Croce song. You don't tug on Superman's cape. I mean, you can't win a fight you pick with the judge in any courtroom. The judge presides over the room, and Judge Merchan specifically is an easy guy to get along with. But again, I come back to, it's like the guy that starts the fight at the wedding. If you're throwing the wedding, you're hoping the guests remember the lovely service and reception and not the individual that, made it all about himself. We're here now talking about this ridiculous nonsense instead of the fact that a disbarred lawyer stole $60,000 from his client. But that is now buried by this trivial nonsense.
And he's going to be back on the stand for the defense today. I mean, how damaging was yesterday, and can they recover, the defense team, can they recover today?
Alex, I don't know if it was damaging in a substantive manner. I wasn't there, and I can't opine on that. But the optics are horrific. I mean, Mr. Blanche made some great strides over the last several days. The momentum seemed to be going the defense's way, and now you've got this distraction. But I think in the final analysis, jurors are smart. It's been a long trial. And I think that they'll sift through the weeds to get to the important stuff.
And as they do that sifting, I would assume there are two main issues for the average juror in that box listening to this case. And we'll see, what happens next week when it's officially in their hands. It's one, how much do I believe or not believe Michael Cohen? Mm-hmm. And how much stock do I give to the idea that the prosecution took 5 weeks and put on 20 witnesses, and the defense appears to go a matter of a few days with one witness and Trump himself not taking the stand? And even though I'm not supposed to, do I interpret that in any kind of way? Those strike me as the two main things that may be in the head of that jury.
Rob, I want to address those in reverse, if you will. You just hit the nail on the head. Even though we're not supposed to, the juries, and this jury specifically, will be instructed that in a criminal case in our country, the defendant need not ever testify, and you may not hold it against him or her. But as you say, people want to hear two sides of a story. But that's not the way our system works. And to your first point, sometimes I do fear that jurors employ a quantitative analysis. Hey, they put on 70 witnesses, and the defense didn't put anybody on, or put on, a couple of character witnesses. But that's not the way it works. A defendant, you, me, Mr. Trump, can sit there and play tiddlywinks and do the crossword puzzle all through the trial. All you need to do if you're a defendant is show up. And frankly, and I'm not going to second guess this defense team because they're doing a fabulous job, but this whole Costello thing is such a distraction because when they get down to it, the linchpin is Mr. Cohen, disbarred lawyer, convicted perjurer, lied to the FBI, lied to the IRS, lied about the lies he told, stole $60,000 from a client. You know, in the world of attorney discipline, that's like first-degree murder. That's the worst thing you can do, is steal from a client. But yet today, we're talking about this interchange with this witness and Judge Merchan. It's unfortunate for the defense.
And everyone understands Michael Cohen's legal background makes him profoundly problematic as a star witness. But on the flip side, the defendant, former President Trump, his business has been found guilty of fraud to the tune of a $500 million penalty. Pardon me. In another case in New York, he's been held civilly liable for sexual assault in the E. Jean Carroll case, in addition to defamation. So why is Michael Cohen's legal background so problematic, but Trump's not?
Here's why, Rob. And you're right about the facts you laid out. Hopefully the jury doesn't know that. They're not supposed to consider that. But this is, you know, it's kind of like a menu. You know, do you order a la carte or do you order, you know, the price fix? This is an a la carte situation. This is one case, the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. And the only thing to be considered here is, did the state prove its allegations? It's not, let me hear from Cohen, let me hear from Trump, let me see which side I like better. It doesn't work that way. So the prosecution chose to bring this case in. And frankly, Rob, you know, Mr. Bragg had prosecutorial discretion. Imagine sitting in his armchair a couple of years ago, having already turned this thing down, and the Southern District of New York turned it down, and somebody pitches and says, you know, let's do this. But then they run through the liabilities of the star witness. I mean, I just can't imagine, when you're talking about maybe some misdemeanors, possibly a felony, of business records, or maybe election finance law, compared to the baggage that Cohen brings. And, you know, the other sad thing about this witness fighting with Judge Merchan is there was a lot to deal with, a lot to talk about yesterday. Forget the 60 grand he stole. Now he wants to run for Congress. I mean, maybe he qualifies in today's world. I don't know. But because his name recognition is high. I mean, there's so much to argue with this guy. I just don't know if the prosecution can get it home based on the good word of Mr. Cohen.
Ultimately, how do you think the jury will decide?
I'm sorry, Alex?
How do you think the jury will decide ultimately?
I never predict, because every time I do, I'm wrong. But I'll say this yet. You know, I spent 8 weeks in that particular courtroom with this particular judge, and most of that prosecution team. There's 5 boroughs in New York, but you only pick from the island of Manhattan. And unfortunately, for this defendant, he is not popular on that island. So you've got a very tough jury pool. But you weigh that against a shaky case. You know, it's kind of put together with bubble gum and zip ties and duct tape to get it to the felony if it ever gets there. It really is an indictment in search of a crime. They haven't specified what the actual crime is, the statute, the specific law. So I think the jury's going to have a hard time with that. And Cohen was a disaster. Cohen's lawyer, who I have affection and respect for, Mr. Davis, has been repeatedly talking about this note that Mr. Weisselberg allegedly put together as being some type of smoking gun. That was eviscerated yesterday, because now we know the figures on the note are fraudulent, since Cohen took $30,000 of his client's money. And look at the seedy way that he did it, Alex and Rob. He went to the bank over a series of several days to pull out the cash, so it wasn't suspicious to the bank. And he hands a brown paper bag with 20 grand and you know, probably small bills to the Redfin individual. I mean, it's just the whole case is just bizarre.
We will leave it there. Former Trump attorney Bill Brennan, thank you so much for giving us some time here on Morning Rush. We shall see what the jury does. As a reminder, it only takes one to believe there's reasonable doubt. And
good point. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.